Good afternoon, everybody, on this Tuesday, Veterans Day, November 11th, 2025. I got all of your stories for your rush hour ride home. Actually, pretty interesting day today, holiday here, but we're still working. We've got Justin Baldoni. They've been releasing these text messages that's come out from the trial, things we haven't seen before, and it's not looking good for Colleen Hoover, the author of It Ends With Us. She made some claims that are just flat out wrong. I'll share what that was and why Baldoni claims she's responsible for landing him in the hospital. It's pretty wild stuff. We'll get into that in another story of a British influencer who admits to faking cancer. And then Obama surprises a flight on Veterans Day, wishing all of the veterans well. And then we've got Dave Portnoy responding to an anti-Semitic attack. It's I don't know how else to say this. It's a crazy time to be alive. But let's start out with some positive. Here's President Obama surprising a group of veterans to honor them this Veterans Day. Boy, look how surprised everyone is.
What? As we approach Veterans Day, I wanted to stop by and just say thank you for your extraordinary service to you, your family.
I love seeing grown men look like they're seeing Santa Claus. They're like, what? Obama?
Sacrifices that all of you made to protect our country is something that will always be honored. And we are very grateful, and we also happen to welcome you with a 70-degree day in D.C., which doesn't always happen around here.
That's the first time I've seen a president, former or current, greet an honor flight, and that is absolutely amazing. A commander-in-chief, a leader who's going to show up and tell you that your service was worth something. I think that's the important part, so I think it was a great thing to know.
And beautiful stuff. Good to see. You know, I was thinking today, I was at Starbucks. As you know, I'm addicted. They got me, folks. And although I haven't been able to buy one of those barista cups, I'm not going to buy one. They're $30. That's ridiculous. But I saw a guy there, and I didn't get to thank him for his service because he was on the other side of the store in line. But he had a veteran's hat. He had an Iraq War veteran hat on. And like I've talked before, you know, my father served several tours in Vietnam, the Vietnam War. He died with Agent Orange, which is a neurological, he has so many different issues, PTSD and whatnot. And he never really was accepted back into the world after living, so many horrendous moments at such a young age, 18, 19, 20 years old. So when I see these veterans, the one thing we just hope for those veterans, men and women that have served, is that we do our best to make their service worthwhile. We do our best to make sure that they're living a life where they're able to get the health care, the mental health care that they need to assimilate back into culture, and that they can thrive when they are back into our culture, and that they're not fighting in wars that are either senseless or not for a common good. And I'm glad we live in a time now where we can speak out about wars, where we can say we better not be sending our troops into situations that don't benefit us. We better not, I'm glad we can live in that time where we can hold our leaders to a value. Many leaders, most of our leaders whose kids have never served in war, so that they don't do things that lead to more bloodshed. So don't take our patriotism for granted is what I'm trying to say. Let's move it on from there. How about this? Intimacy coordinating has been a conversation we've talked a lot about. Is it Florence Pugh? Or Poog. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm sorry, guys. Either way, she opens up on the Louis Theroux podcast regarding intimacy coordinators, which again is a position that is new to the film world, which is there to make sure you don't have situations like Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively did have, even though they did have an intimacy coordinator. But here's that conversation.
It's my view is changing about it as well, because I'm now having fantastic experiences with intimacy coordinators. However, that being said, I've also had a example where someone just made it so weird and so awkward and really wasn't helpful, and kind of was just wanting to be a part of the set in a way that wasn't helpful. And I think it's a job that's still figuring itself out.
Yeah, the problem with intimacy coordinators, I can imagine, like any position on a film set, is that everyone wants to do more because it's so great to get a job that you try to make it about you first, main character energy. But my guess is if you're hiring an intimacy coordinator, you want everyone to like them because, they're part of that intimacy, that conversation, and you want to be able to talk to them from a place of trust. But like she says, it's still being worked out.
Allowed on camera, what's not allowed on camera, all of that is also arranged with your lawyer, because that has to be put into the contract. Really? Yeah. So your lawyer will basically be going through and making sure that a nudity rider, what you are allowing and what you're not allowing.
Yeah, because when you get there on the day, so many people are taking advantage of, look, I know you said you didn't want to do nudity, but would you do this? And then there's 30 grown men looking at you, the people that have to pay your bill, your checks, and you're like, yeah, whatever you want. So it's a good place to be, but it's a work in progress. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into the Baldoni stuff in a minute, and trust me when I say it's interesting. But how about this? This is But how about this? Brittany Miller is a British influencer, 3.5 million followers, and she's made a video admitting that she did fake cancer back in 2017.
Okay, so I never wanted to talk about this time in my life because it was a very difficult time for me, but I owe it to my followers and people that support me to tell you my truth. I also want to put a stop to the people that are twisting and exaggerating what actually happened.
So she goes into details in this 5-minute video how she faked cancer in 2017 with extreme mental health issues. We're obviously dealing with Laura Owens, who faked ovarian cancer. And normally when people are exposed to faking something with irrefutable evidence, they, admit to it, right? That's, you can't hit rock bottom until you stop digging. Laura Owens hasn't admitted to that. And, unfortunately, she's being charged with 14 felonies and could face a very long time in jail. But I think there's a conversation worth having about overcoming lies like this. Steve Renazizi, the comedian, for the longest time had this lie that he was at 9/11, and it just expanded from him as a no-name comic to all of a sudden he's kind of a famous guy. And then finally the truth came out in one way or another. The truth always comes out. So an anonymous former friend claimed to The Sun that Brittany set up a Just Giving page and saying she had a stage 3 gastric cancer and urged her pals to share the fundraiser. So there is a special place in hell for people that do fake these types of things. And yet, while I would never do that, I understand that someone who would fake that does have a lot of mental health issues. And therefore, if they're willing to own up to it and live a better life and say that they did these horrible things, I'm all about people moving forward. I wouldn't trust her if she said she had cancer again. It's called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Maybe get, some actual evidence this time. But either way, this story, I guess, came out a while ago. And maybe it's just that she's famous now, that it's people are, asking her to speak on it. I don't know. Either way, I think you can continue your life having committed a great big lie just like that, as long as you're willing to address why you lied and all of the sort of mental health that goes around it. Speaking of lying, somebody's been fibbing with this Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively stuff, and you need to knock it off. So we've got everybody sharing these new messages. It ends with lawsuits on Instagram. Says Colleen Hoover claims that Wayfair didn't let her see the It Ends With Us script until fan readings, a claim Wayfair quickly debunked. In fact, she reportedly read the script before Baldoni did. She complained about being filmed for a documentary, which according to Wayfair was only ever an idea that never materialized. Yeah, so she's doing a lot of complaining, and the receipts do not make her look good. I'll share some of them before we go to our break. So, and again, I'm trying to figure out who's who here. This redacted person that says Henny Grace, I think people believe this to be Justin Baldoni with some sort of pseudonym, but it's in quotes. So it's imagined that, or it's assumed that he's quoting what she said, where she was basically upset that she was getting smeared. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but trying to dive through all of this. She says, you guys, speaking of Baldoni and Wayfair, you guys are grown men with a platform. You know how to use it to protect your image. Please don't continue to use it to harm me or mine. That's all I'm asking. Now, these messages date back to August 15th, 2024, when Colleen Hoover and Blake Lively were starting to get a lot of hate. So it's too bad. Baldoni spent 5 years developing this project. He was really close friends with Colleen Hoover, but something happened. Maybe it was whispers from Blake Lively, who knows? Something happened that led Colleen to, I guess, want to side with Blake. Now, a lot of people have thought, well, maybe there's some sort of morality cause that they thought they could get, smear Baldoni privately, and that would be enough for him to want to give up the rights to the project, and she could have part two. Honestly, I have no idea. Look, when you're working on a project for so long, people get ownership over it. It doesn't make it right, but the psychology of Colleen, this being her quote unquote baby, and then you have Blake Lively wanting ownership over it when she doesn't actually have any because she's just the actress in this. You can see people that have that main character energy coming out and exposing their worst. I'm not making a pass for this whatsoever. But the text messages clearly reveal that she was given multiple passes of the script. She wrote the book and they promised her, look, we're going to do it justice. And a book is so different from a movie as far as what can be told and dialogue, and it's just so different. So you have to make a book fit a movie. Sometimes, people always go, I love the book better. They didn't cover this. Well, you can only cover so much in a movie, right? Every page of a screenplay equals a minute's worth of time. So a 100-page script usually equals about 100 minutes, which is probably an ideal time for a movie. Unless you're one of those crazy people that makes those 3-hour movies. What are you doing? Who's got the time and energy, right? So either way, clearly she's being exposed here. But what I'm going to share next with you is actually the update where we've got Baldoni refusing to go to bat for her after she put him in the hospital. New text messages between Justin and his PR team expose that Colleen Hoover's decision to side with Blake Lively's cut of the movie was the betrayal that sent Justin to the hospital. Further messages reveal how Wayfair tried to rise above Blake's PR war, targeting them. And Little Nomad posted this on June 5th. 1 year ago today, Baldoni was hospitalized after being coerced to step away from the passion project he had spent 5 years developing, handing full control over to Blake Lively. As you guys remember, they had Blake Lively's cut. They screen tested it versus his cut. His cut scored better with their core demographic. Her cut scored better with men, which means she made a sexier version of herself. But either way, they ended up incorporating most of his cut. But here's messages from Justin. So Jennifer Abel, his PR firm team, said this: you can say that you have done nothing but honor her in her book and you want to have a conversation and you miss the relationship you had, blah, blah. So this is them pitching, what he can say to the press to kind of, feed in that everything's okay. This being at a time when Colleen Hoover and Blake Lively, coerced the whole spineless cast to unfollow him. Boy, talk about biting the hand that feeds. And then he says, can we please have our regroup with everybody, including Melissa? I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity just right now in this moment to be the bigger person and to do that. You have to remember that it was her betrayal that landed me in the hospital. It's been devastating to me. Now, you can be a victim and not play a victim, and that's what I see right here with Baldoni, right? If he was playing a victim, then he would be doing interviews saying, I was betrayed and sent to the hospital. He's quite literally in a private conversation saying, I can't go to bat for her. She literally made me so ill over this betrayal, which I totally understand. You got Baldoni here, member of the Baha'i faith. They don't speak ill about each other. They have a real spiritual frequency, a real high vibes frequency. To live a great life. I respect that. And I think that's a great barometer in a religion to get behind, just wanting to do your best and provide love to the world, right? And when he sees somebody that he worked with for years, sending notes back and forth, I mean, you can imagine. I have people in my life that I felt I was betrayed by that I didn't know nearly as long as that. And I have to tell you, it hurts. I know that betrayal to an extent. It hurts because it makes you question your whole reality. It makes you question if everyone else is going to betray you. I can't imagine the paranoia. Jennifer Abel responded, fully understand and respect that. Jamie Heath is working through a response. Instead of thinking of this as an olive branch, this is a tactile art of war approach. If Colleen can come around and is willing to open up lines of communication, that would be a massive message to the world that the issue solely relates to Blake and not to all of the women. And again, they just keep on having these issues where, early on, everyone assumed, including myself, that Baldoni was the bad guy. Well, why would everyone unfollow him if he did nothing wrong? I don't understand. Not surprisingly. And Baldoni was the boss, so maybe people didn't like his directorial style. He mentions he's on the spectrum or something like that, and maybe he's too blunt or whatever. But again, if someone's a little blunt, that's a little different than saying that they were harassing you. Lively reneged on her promise and insisted that her version be released to the public instead of Baldoni's cut as director, even claiming that the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film as well if Lively's version was not chosen. Baldoni was forced to choose between killing the film and his own career by insisting on his own creative vision and rights, or putting out a version of the film that Baldoni knew could still be so important to DV survivors, even if it differed greatly from what it could have been. Baldoni was essentially forced to fire himself as director and allowed Lively to finish his film. It's wild stuff. So yeah, there it is. She sent him to the hospital. Again, who knows? Who knows how much of that is like her doing, but seems to be that I don't have any reason to think Justin Baldoni's lying here. Why wouldn't he want to offer an olive branch to Colleen Hoover? He would, if you're Baldoni and this is your project, you would do and say anything to get it to the finish line, right? So the fact that he stands by his own conviction here versus doing what was right, as far as for the film goes, and trying to have an olive branch to say, look, I don't have it in me. You know what? I can't. I don't have it in me. I'm in the hospital. She crossed me. She can go F herself. I almost respect Baldoni even more now. Most holiday gifts end up in a drawer or the back of your closet or accidentally left at your cousin's house. Not this one. Mint Mobile is offering unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. That's their best deal of the year. It's the only holiday gift you'll actually use every single day. That's why I'm with Mint. You get a 3, 6, or 12-month unlimited plan for $15 a month. You can bring your current phone and number over to Mint, get high-speed data, unlimited text and talk on the nation's largest 5G network. So don't get them socks, get them premium wireless for $15 a month. Shop Mint Unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/TRH. That's mintmobile.com/TRH. Limited time offer. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $95 for 6, or $180 for a 12-month plan. Required $15 a month. Equivalent taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. All right, let's move into some other stories here. Tough week for churches, right? Of course, I shared that TikToker who was calling all the churches, doing a social experiment to see if they'll give her, some baby formula. Of course, churches always say we're here to help people. Well, Dream City Church said that wealth redistribution is called socialism. And that's why they say it's the church's job, not the government's, to take care of poor people. This was one of the churches that decided not to help this social experiment. This was also, I believe, Charlie Kirk's church. Have a listen to this.
Is called socialism. There's an entire election taking place in New York this next week about a socialist, really a communist. And there are many people who are going to vote for him because they want to take from the makers, redistribute that, and give it to the takers.
So this man is accusing Zohran Mamdani of being a communist because he wants to raise the taxes of millionaires by 2 percentage points. And by the way, this is his $2 million home in Scottsdale.
And it was never God's plan. Listen, in the last 50 years, the West has put
And this is his $2.2 million home that he rents out for $22,000 a month.
$1 billion into Africa. And the standard of living is lower in most of those countries than it was 50 years ago. Why? Because they don't need a hand out, they need a hand up. They don't need aid, they need trade. They don't need
aid, they need trade. Listen, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. This is so, first of all, this is so racist. You're saying that people don't need help in Africa. They don't need food. You need to, they need a lot of things in a lot of different places. Now, speaking just here in the United States, we need clean drinking water. We need to be able to have formula ready for single moms or any parents that need the help. Those are basic human life things. So this idea that people are living off the system, I can tell you right now, people all want abundance. Nobody wants to live off the system. They may be living off the system because they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. They're so broke. They're so in debt. They've got so many medical issues. They can't catch a break. They're addicted to painkillers because of whatever health condition they had that led them to that. this idea by this able-bodied pastor who's extremely wealthy that we shouldn't be helping people is really sad, and he's not alone. Here is, and again, I know not every church is like this, but we need to expose the ones that are. Pastor gets his Rolls Royce delivered to his church. Wow.
Church is finally here. None of this would be possible without y'all and God.
You celebrating tonight?
I am just not with y'all.
So he says, you couldn't do this without you and God. And that's a nice white Rolls Royce for the pastor. And it's wild that people let this happen, you know? Here's somebody else claiming, hey, churches don't owe you anything.
You think churches are supposed to feed everybody, no matter the circumstances. They're open 24/7. They have unlimited resources, and they should never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, try to vet people they serve.
No, and listen, this is in response to a women's social experiment where she was just asking for a little baby formula. Now, she didn't actually need it. She didn't actually have a baby. It was an experiment. But some people, like the mosque, said, yeah, what kind do you want? We'll get it. We'll do what we need to do. And others said, well, we have a food pantry, but if the food pantry's out, we can't help you. Like, you're shit out of luck. Like, we have a thing in place. And I think what a lot of churches will realize is whatever they're doing, it's just not enough if they're living a life of abundance. If you have a pastor who's got several multi-million-dollar homes and you can't call up for a formula, then the government's failed you, your churches have failed you, and this big fear about socialism is so far away that you can't even get a phone call to get formula from a company, a church that doesn't pay taxes. So I think all churches should be taxed, and I think they should operate as a business. And look, if you get tax write-offs, right? If you're a church and you have to pay the pastor and to keep the lights on and all of that, you get a write-off on that. You don't pay taxes on that anyway. You pay taxes on the profits of the business. So, or they don't, but I think they should. All right, here's David Portnoy. This is a wild story. President of Barstool Sports. He's a Jewish American, which is important for this story because it's really, really scary stuff. He does his pizza reviews. He's super well known for it. But at the beginning of his pizza reviews, he's literally doing his review, whatever, and then a guy runs by and yells something crazy. Have a listen.
He's made me want to hate Starkville, but so far I like it.
So this guy says, F the Jews, F you, Dave Portnoy, and throws pennies at him. And this is in Starkville. And immediately everyone's so embarrassed by this blatant anti-Semitism. I mean, it's obviously bad when you see this in the comment section, but to see somebody on camera do this, how dumb and hateful do you have to be? And the guy continues and it's like, look, if you don't like Portnoy and you want to say F you, Dave Portnoy, look, you're allowed to say F you to somebody. I could walk down the street, you could yell that, whatever. But the guy was actually arrested for public disturbance. And of course, I mean, he literally did it on camera. I guess it just goes to show how brazen some people are with their own hatred and racism and anti-Semitism, which again, you do not want to live in a world where this is in Starkville. Is that Alabama? I'm sorry if I have the wrong state, but again, the majority of the people super embarrassed, and then the majority super embarrassed about this, and then the rest obviously don't. He doesn't speak for them, but that still exists.
They arrested this loser for disturbing the peace. Show him the mugshot. Nice hair, you fucking loser. Introducing Patrick McClintock. Not to be confused with his brother who's also been arrested a bunch of times. Real fucking classy family. And I hope it was worth it for this kid. Now this story will follow this piece of shit everywhere he goes. I assume he's going to get booted out of school. Deserves it. And every time he applies for a job, they're going to oh, so you're an anti-Semitic piece of shit.
Yeah. Excuse me, that's exactly what's going to happen. My apologies to Alabama. Starkville is in Mississippi. Don't come after me, folks. I'm trying my best. So either way there, justice for Dave Portnoy. The guy, he's literally, and by the way, you know what's crazy too, is he goes to these pizza shops. Say what you want about him, right? He goes to these pizza shops, he gives a review, and then he makes these pizza shops famous, because he has such a big following for what he does. So it's a real embarrassment for the people of that town, but immediately they expose the guy. And yeah, that's gonna hurt that guy's employment for the rest of his life. And, rightfully so. All right. Well, how about this? Times are bad out there when Tim Dillon, he's a Republican comedian. He might not be full MAGA, but he was, Trump curious at the very least. Now he's calling out Trump. And again, you're going to see more and more of this as the key to popularity or lack thereof is the economy. And people are feeling so much pain within the first 10 months of a pregnancy. How quickly, are people really suffering out here? Have a listen.
One who seems to get it, as crazy as he might be, is Steve Bannon, who goes, no, we're in deep trouble. Bannon is talking about that, and he's telling the people on his side of the aisle they're in real trouble because the pendulum is now swinging back to economic concerns.
And by the way, the fact that Steve Bannon knows that they're in big trouble and still wants Trump for a third term, I honestly don't get it. It's not that their messaging is off. It's the fact that their policies are off. All of the tariffs, that's just, a tax on the consumer. Inflation's gone up. All this whole ICE issue has led to not just terror across our country, but it's led to violence, by these ICE officers who are paid a fortune to terrorize us wearing masks. Look, think what you want about it. It hasn't made our country better. It hasn't made grocery prices go down. They're only going up because we've lost, our workforce. Sagar from Breaking Points is the Republican voice on a bipartisan show. Is a Republican named Sagar. Crystal Ball is a progressive, I guess, lefty. I don't know if she considers herself a Democrat, but here he is kind of like naming it. Like this administration just doesn't care.
He obviously is more laser focused on adding as much gold Home Depot decor as possible at the White House and remaking it in the image of like a low 3-star hotel than he is in terms of what's happening to you. That's the point. It's the culmination of, it's November 10th now. You got elected about a year ago. Mm-hmm. What have you done for me lately?
And of course, what they've done is really light on fire the Constitution. What they've done is, unconstitutional as far as the tariffs are concerned, putting people in prisons outside the country without due process, obviously putting the National Guard in different cities that don't request it, that are perfectly fine without it. The list blowing up people, on fishing boats. The list goes on and on, not to mention the grift, the billions of dollars that have been made with Trump coin, Trump phone, Trump watch, Trump shoe, Epstein's ballroom, all these different things. And you have folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene on the right saying, look, we just want transparency. We want our health insurance prices to go down. So who won the shutdown? Well, the Democrats caved on the shutdown. We know that. But did they extend it long enough for Americans to see how truly effed they really are? The curiosity of looking at my health insurance as it's going up from $1,500 a month to $2,200 a month for my family. That's $7,000 increase. That's happening next year unless Republicans decide to vote to save these subsidies. These health programs are not for Democrats. They're for Americans. How many Republicans that needed SNAP benefits went a week without that food? Will they earn their trust back? My guess is no. My guess is you're going to see more and more people speaking out. It's a real slow-moving train, and it's going to be tough for them to turn it around. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a lot of pain before it gets better. I think it's going to be a lot of the find out stage of F around and find out, where we learn the results of these policies that are only benefiting the ultra wealthy, and the rest of us are screwed. All right, that's it for me. I got a great episode coming tomorrow morning, a very special one. I've got a guest coming to join me in-house to talk a lot about the world or country's issues. So you're going to like that. Stick around for that. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the alert bell on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on the podcast app. We appreciate you. We'll see you in the morning. I'm Dave. This is The Rush.